My husband's betrayal came in the form of taking our family savings and giving them to his mistress. When I confronted him, he told me I was crazy and kicked me out of our house without a second thought. As I stood in the rain, watching him drive away, I swore I would make him pay. But what he didn't know was that his worst nightmare was just beginning. I was 38 when it happened. We'd been together since I was 24. Brad was 30 when we met. Older, confident, already with a house and a stable job. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Everyone around me did too. My mom said, "You picked a man who knows what he wants." Yeah, well, what he wanted turned out to be a little more twisted than any of us could have guessed. We lived in Louisville, out in the suburbs. Nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms split level, enough space for the kids to have their rooms and for us to have a decent backyard. I worked part-time at a dental office. Brad handled the finances. He said I should focus on the kids and keeping the house going. "You don't need to worry about bills and numbers," he'd say. "I've got that covered." And I believed him. For 14 years, I clipped coupons. I tracked every cent at the grocery store. We didn't do vacations unless they were driving distance. I skipped getting my hair done unless it was a special occasion. Every time I looked at our savings, I saw it slowly growing. It felt like progress. Like we were on our way to something better. He knew that money mattered to me. Not in a greedy way, just in a security way. I grew up broke. My dad walked out when I was 10, and my mom worked 2 jobs. I never wanted that kind of fear again. And then one day, it just vanished. The morning it happened, it was sunny. I remember that clearly, because I was in such a good mood. The kids were at school. I'd just gotten back from the shop where they fixed my brakes, and I thought, finally, something going right. The car felt safe. I felt like a responsible adult. I sat down at my desk to move some money over from savings to cover it, and then I saw it. $126.82. I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a glitch. I even called the bank. But no. It was real. 6 transfers, each one about $3,000. All labeled as personal expense transfer. All going to Brad's private checking account. I didn't even know he had one. I sat there, staring at the screen, and I felt my whole body go cold. It was like something in me shut off. I texted him, "Hey, when you get home we need to talk." He replied, "What about?" I just said, "Money. Just come home early if you can." He walked in at 6:47 p.m. I remember the time because I was pacing the hallway and I heard his car pull up. The kids were in their rooms. I waited until he set down his briefcase before I handed him the bank statement I printed. He didn't even flinch, just looked at it and said, "Okay." I asked him where the money went. He didn't try to lie. He said, "Amanda needed help. Her ex left her in a real bad place." I said, "Who the hell is Amanda?" That's when he looked at me like I was stupid. "I've told you about her," he said. "She works with me. We're close. We're close." That's what he said. Like I was supposed to be fine with it. I asked if he was cheating. He just rolled his eyes. "This is why I didn't tell you. You're always so emotional. Amanda's going through hell, and you want to treat her like some homewrecker?" I asked again, "Did you sleep with her?" He didn't answer. He just said, "You're insane. You're making this into something it's not." And then he snapped. "You know what? I can't deal with this right now. You're nuts. You need to go cool off." He walked past me, grabbed my purse from the entry table, opened the front door, and threw it onto the porch. "Go stay with your mom or something. I'll call you when you calm down." I swear to God, I thought he was joking. But then I heard the deadbolt click behind me. It was raining. I didn't even have shoes on. I stood there on the porch, soaking wet, looking at the house I spent years turning into a home, and he just shut me out like I was nothing. That was the moment everything in me changed. I stood there in the rain for 10 minutes. Not crying, not yelling, just still, frozen, watching the front window, waiting to see if he'd look out. He never did. Then I walked to my car, sat behind the wheel, and pulled out my phone. I didn't have a plan yet. But I knew one thing for sure. He was going to regret every single choice he made. And I was going to make sure of it. I didn't go to my mom's. I drove to a cheap motel near the edge of town. One of those places with buzzing lights and mildew in the bathroom. I didn't care. I needed somewhere to sit, charge my phone, and think. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, anger. Cold, clean anger. The kind that sits in your bones. At 3 a.m., I started making a list. Not a to-do list. A war list. First, I needed proof. I couldn't go off assumptions. I needed records, screenshots, receipts. I knew Brad kept everything on his laptop. And he was lazy, same passwords for everything. So the next morning, I drove back to the house while he was at work and let myself in with the spare key from the outdoor hose box. The kids were at school. I had 2 hours max. His laptop was in the bedroom. I logged in, same password he used for Netflix. I opened his email. Within 15 minutes, I had what I needed. Hotel reservations in his name and hers. Flights to Nashville, twice. A signed lease agreement for a downtown apartment. He was setting up a new life with her. Using our money. I screenshotted everything. Sent it all to a fresh email account I created just for this. Then I made 2 more stops, our bank and a lawyer. The bank couldn't reverse the transfers. But they did confirm all the savings were joint funds, which meant in court I could prove misuse. They even printed the transfer authorizations. His name on every single one. The lawyer? She was cold, sharp, and brilliant. She listened to me, looked at the emails, and said, "He's in deep. But you need to play this smart." We filed for legal separation the next day. Brad didn't see it coming. He tried calling me after the court papers hit his desk. Said, "You didn't have to do this." I told him, "You kicked me out in the rain, Brad. I didn't do anything. You did." Then he made it worse. He started turning the kids against me. He told them I left the family, that I was unstable. He even told our youngest, 8 years old, that mommy couldn't handle being a mom anymore. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to scream. But my lawyer warned me, "Stay calm. Document everything. He wants you to lose your temper." So I played the long game. I made copies of the texts, recorded every phone call. I asked the kids gentle, open questions when they got back from visits. I wrote down everything they said. And the more I dug, the more I found. Amanda wasn't just a mistress. She was his boss's daughter. And the apartment he leased downtown? It was in his name, but she was the only one listed on the mailbox. That's when I knew Brad was lying to everyone. Not just me. His job didn't know. Her family didn't know. No one knew the full truth but me. And I wasn't done yet. Because if he wanted war, he was about to learn what a woman with nothing left to lose could really do. A month into the legal separation, I found out he'd forged my signature. I got a call from our old tax preparer. She said, "Hey, just wanted to confirm. You guys already filed jointly this year?" I froze. We hadn't filed yet. At least I hadn't. He had. Brad had gone into our past returns, copied my signature from a scanned PDF, and filed early. He used my social security number, claimed both kids, and walked away with a $6,400 refund, all deposited into his personal account. I filed a fraud report with the IRS that same day. My lawyer added identity theft to our case file. That changed things. A civil case was one thing. This was now criminal. And still, he acted like none of it mattered. He still drove around in his leased SUV. Still posted pictures of him and Amanda at bourbon tastings and local festivals like he hadn't burned down his own life. But karma doesn't always come fast. Sometimes you have to help it along. I hired a private investigator. It cost me more than I could really afford, but I didn't care. I told him I needed documentation of Brad and Amanda's relationship, where they went, who paid for what, whether she knew he was married when it started. 2 weeks later, I got a file full of gold. Photos of them at a corporate retreat, one he billed to his company. Copies of restaurant bills. A shot of Amanda driving Brad's company car. That was my next move. I sent an anonymous packet to Brad's HR department. I included everything. The affair, the misuse of company property, the fact that he was secretly dating a higher-up's daughter while diverting family funds into what looked like bribery. A week later, Brad was put on indefinite leave. He didn't tell the kids. He didn't even tell Amanda. But I knew, because Amanda messaged me. It was 1:03 a.m. I'll never forget that alert on my phone. She wrote, "I don't know what he told you, but I didn't know he was still married. He said you two were divorced for a year already. He told me you were unstable, that you'd cheated, that you'd abandoned the kids. I just found out about everything. I'm so sorry." I didn't respond. What could I say? Sorry doesn't refill your savings. Sorry doesn't undo 14 years of gaslighting. But that message gave me leverage, because it meant he lied to her, too. And that made her angry. Turns out, Amanda had receipts of her own. Screenshots of texts. Voice messages. A spreadsheet Brad had made outlining shared expenses he claimed he'd reimburse her for, expenses paid for with my money. She offered to send it all to me. I said yes. Then I asked her one question. "Do you want to burn him down with me?" She said, "Hell yes." Amanda kept her word. Within a week, I had everything, screenshots, voice notes, emails, all showing Brad promising her money, apartments, and gifts paid for with our savings. She also had texts where he bragged about filing our taxes without my knowledge, saying, "She'll never know. She doesn't even look at that stuff." I handed everything to my lawyer. At our next court hearing, Brad was blindsided. His smug attitude disappeared the moment my attorney slid the printed emails and bank records across the table. When Amanda's notarized affidavit was introduced into the evidence file, he looked like he'd been punched in the gut. It was over. His lies were now legal record. The court ruled in my favor on every count. He was found responsible for misappropriating marital funds. The judge ordered him to repay half the savings immediately, $9,000, plus cover my legal fees. He was stripped of all joint custody until a psychological evaluation could be completed. Supervised visits only. His passport was frozen due to the pending IRS fraud case. But the real hit came next. Brad's company fired him, officially this time. The HR packet I sent had triggered an internal investigation. Misuse of company property, failure to disclose a relationship with an executive's daughter, and improper expense reporting. He lost his six-figure job and his reputation in the industry. I didn't stop there. Remember the downtown apartment he leased for Amanda? It was in his name. She moved out the day after the hearing, but not before leaving it a complete wreck. Wine-stained carpet, broken closet doors, cigarette burns in the couch. He was liable for every dime. He called me a month later, begging to talk. He said he was sorry, that he messed up, and that he wanted to fix things for the kids. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just said, "Talk to my lawyer," and hung up. 3 months later, he was living in a one-bedroom rental behind a gas station in Clarksville, driving a dented Camry, delivering groceries for cash. He owed thousands in back support, couldn't find a decent job, and his credit was wrecked. Amanda? She blocked him. Turns out, she didn't like being lied to either. I rebuilt slowly. Got a better job at a different dental office. Moved into a smaller home, but one that was mine, safe and peaceful. I set up new savings accounts just in my name this time. The kids saw what happened. They saw who stayed and who ran. They know the truth. So now, when I sit in my kitchen, sipping coffee while the rain hits the window, I don't feel pain anymore. I feel peace. Because when he shut that door and left me standing in the rain, he thought he won. But he had no idea. His worst nightmare was only just beginning. And I made sure it ended with everything he cared about, money, career, pride, burned to the ground.